Hello and welcome to Lightways at Life Astrologer with me, Anna Isabel. And it is with utter delight that I welcome back my guest today, Kelley Hunter. Hello, Kelley.
Hello, so glad to be back with you.
It's a joy always to speak with you. And well, today it seems very timely to have our conversation because we've just had Jupiter go into Cancer. We're on the eve of a full moon. And you have plenty of interesting things to say about that. So I'm just going to go over to you.
Okay. Well, I have a couple of slides I'll share, but we always have these interesting dialogues, and you always come up with really interesting insights and questions along the way. So this is definitely one of the turning points of our year, and we are having just amazing lunations, are we not? The new moons and the full moons are just pretty wild, and this full moon tomorrow is called the strawberry moon because anyway, in the northern hemisphere here, and we're just getting the first strawberries coming in here to the northeast, so that's part of the full moon. But it also has it's the first lunation after Jupiter has gone into Cancer. So let me show you this chart. Then we'll start with the chart and look at this full moon on June 11th. And although it's in, Gemini, Sun in Gemini, Moon in Sagittarius, and I always think of a full moon as being the polarity. So I never think of it just as a full moon in Sagittarius. I think of it as a full moon in Sagittarius Gemini because it's reflecting. Those two signs are opposed and dynamic and blossoming the full light of what that new moon was bringing in 2 weeks ago. The main feature I pointed out here, and this is Jupiter went into Cancer for the first time in 12 years. Jupiter is goes around the sun in 12 years and through all the zodiac signs in that time. So just as a little side note, personally, we each have a Jupiter return every 12 years. So if your Jupiter is in Cancer, you're having a Jupiter return this year, and it will stay in Cancer for a whole year. Sometimes it will go retrograde back into the former sign, but not this time. Jupiter's in Cancer, and that's that. And it went into Cancer right with Mercury. Mercury, like, is the ruler of Gemini, and went into Cancer to kind of usher Jupiter in to one of Jupiter's most fabulous signs. It's called exalted in Cancer, which means Jupiter just loves being there. Cancer loves to have it there. So that's one of the new features. And we're going to talk quite a bit about what that means, but let's point out right here that it is squaring uh, in an active dynamic. Squares aren't negative. They can be challenging and they can mean conflict, but the real essential meaning, I think, is it's a dynamic activation between two signs that are kind of playing off each other. They're both cardinal signs which start things, but they do it in very different ways because Cancer's water working through the feelings. Cancer has that kind of reaching out, kind of feelings. It's not a completely receptive sign. It's actively receptive. It's feeling things out. And then Aries is fire. And this is also fairly recent because on the last new moon, 2 weeks ago, is about when Saturn went into Aries to join Neptune that just went into Aries at the end of March. And we happen to have Ceres here right now, Earth Mother energy, Gaia energy, that's also very activated and part of all of this. Probably won't talk too much about Ceres right now, but I think that Ceres being Earth Mother energy in this new energy that's coming is very meaningful. that Gaia is alive. We live on her, we live with her, we live in her. And I think this Cancer activation is going to be amplifying that. Amplifying is one of my favorite Jupiter words.
And actually, just looking at that, and I'm thinking about the interplay here between Cancer and Aries. And immediately, of course, I'm thinking about yin and yang. And because you were talking about how squares are sometimes challenging. Oh, I was just saying sometimes. I think that's a bit of an often challenging. But at the same time, because it's a yin yang dynamic, I'm just wondering about, I guess maybe I'm getting an image of a dance and, the two dancing together. The trouble with cardinal signs is that they compete as to who is going to lead. And I'm just thinking about interplay of who is going to lead in this dance, and that's a question, isn't it?
Well, can they co-create?
That
And that's it. That's the whole interesting thing about this.
exactly, because that's the aim of the dance is to create, and if we could find a way of this energy collaborating rather than competing, I think a lot could get done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, because they do have different natures. Um, but what you just said about the dance made me think about a tango because the man is leading, but the woman is she's almost riding his thigh was my impression of tango, and that she's actively responding. And I want to, recall that Cancer is a cardinal sign. It's not just a receptive sign. So it's an active responder to the impulse, say, of Aries. And it also can generate its own feeling tone that can kind of soften or calm down the Aries. And if we look at the combination in Aries, Neptune is not, really going to be a fighter energy. It's more of a spiritual warrior if we want to look at it in Aries that way. And Saturn also is sometimes a bit hesitant to go for it.
Mm.
And so that might help the Cancer have more say in be careful where you're going, be careful where you're heading, look before you leap, kind of things that Aries doesn't always do.
Exactly. And I think also series being in there.
Mm.
Again, it's a yang energy, Aries, but the planets that are holding that energy are not the most yang planets either.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
because as you say, although Saturn is supposedly yang, it is it's a much more cautious energy
Yes.
than Aries as well. And I'm looking at that North Node in Pisces, and of course, although that's not actively involved here, it's still the direction that we are moving in, and that's a very soft energy.
Yes. And we can tell from this chart also that it wasn't far long ago that Saturn and Neptune and Ceres all went across that node. But they are separating as the nodes go backwards and the planets have moved on. And even when Saturn and Neptune go back into Pisces for a few months in the fall into next year, they're not going to meet up with the North Node in Pisces. So yeah, so this is new. It's a kind of I was going to say morphing energy, but what Aries wants to do is clarify it, um, and uh, uh, dispel any illusions or veils or blind spots that Neptune can tend to foster. And Saturn is like, get real, people. No, get real. Um, so the strength of the Jupiter going into Cancer, its sign of exaltation is like, yes, let's feel this out. Let's really feel what we need, like what we want to be doing. Let's put those feelers out and check out the situation before we do anything.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's interesting to look at it in that kind of way. And yeah, so we are heading into new territory.
Mm.
So, it's kind of like we're sailing along, right? Now, all of a sudden, look at that waterfall. Are we going over the edge and into what?
The other thing I'd say about it is that for all the differences that exist between Cancer and Aries, both are feeling signs because fire, we always say, oh, the emotional signs are the water signs. But fire is all about emotion because emotion is what drives passion. And
Ah,
and so it's a different kind of feeling, but they are both very feeling.
well, I think of the water signs as being feeling, and I think of the emotive is more the expression of the feeling. So there's the fire, especially Leo fire is very expressive. So to me, there's a difference between feelings and emotions. Emotion is our expression of those feelings, but the water is really tuned in primarily um, to the feeling tone, to the vibration. But, Neptune adds in that extra feeling tone as well, that attention to the specific energy and how we're tuning into that. So, yeah, we are finding a kind of resonance between this combination because of the planets in these signs, and that's really a helpful way to kind of work with it. I was going to say think about it, but this isn't exactly thinking energy.
No, and that was the point is that I was making is that there is nothing practical or thinking about these two signs.
Yes.
Everything is felt. And of course, Aries being a yang energy is going to express it. Um, Cancer being a yin energy, it's much more of an internal, sensing and feeling. But nevertheless, as we've said, being a cardinal sign,
Yes.
it is going to follow through with some action. And
Mhm.
and I think that it's in a sense, it's almost a relief to have that because there's so much fire here that, as you said, where are we heading with this fire? It's Aries has, it's going at full speed. So it's good to have these checks on
Yes.
speed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we might be, kind of coming off the rails at some point.
Yeah. Saturn definitely slows down the speed. And there's Cancer, with a kind of finger on the pulse of what do I feel? What do I need? What do you need? What do I need? What do we need? And it's a giving sign. It's just very giving. To me, it's like the cornucopia of the goddess. Um, so yeah, such an interesting combination. And if we just take it to the Saturn Jupiter, that, Saturn likes to focus and consolidate, and Jupiter likes to amplify and open up and bring opportunities. So that's also a little bit of a dance, at least to start with, because we're going to move out of that specific Jupiter Saturn square pretty soon.
I'm also looking at this and thinking there is something else that these two signs have in common, and that is that they are young signs. You know, they're the first. It's the first fire sign of the zodiac, and it's the first water sign of the zodiac. So there's these are very personal signs in a sense. The individual, it's the individual. You know, Aries is it's me. Here I am, and Cancer, it's how do I feel? You know, these are my feelings. That kind of energy is there, and I feel brings in a an interesting counter tone to the emphasis on collective at the expense of individual, which we have
Oh,
seen being pushed um, very, very
good
heavily.
point. Good point. I mean, Neptune is a collective planet and it's there, but it's in Aries. So Aries to me is like, here's who I am. I'm doing my thing. You know, I can't accommodate beyond a certain point because I am centered in myself and I know that more and I'm getting more clear. And this is the way to move forward. And Jupiter is also helping that in Cancer by saying, well, how am I feeling and how do I want to move forward? You know, where do I want to be going and at what pace? So this comes back to we're each doing it our way. We're each finding our pathway forward because we cannot go back. And that's another interesting part of this thing because Aries is ready to move forward and Cancer has a lot of old habits. It has a lot of very strong memory. And so, we need to remember to move forward, to not be attached to what has been. And Aries can help Cancer overcome that. Come on, let's move on here, and it's like, oh, nostalgia and memories and oh, and it's like we can't do that very much now.
Conversely, also, there has been a push to kind of rewrite history and to encourage people to forget their roots. And Cancer
Mm,
saying, no, roots do matter. And it is important to honor our ancestors, and it is important to honor
yeah.
tradition as well. So, yes, we can move forward, but we can't move forward unless we are also rooted. And I think that that's a very important aspect here
Uh,
of this time that we are in, because and just coming back to the, you were talking about the importance of Aries, here I am, I think that's so vital, because I think I nearly lost my train of thought there. But it's
uh,
just it
we
it
can't give ourselves away.
yeah,
Because they're so giving, but we can't give ourselves away and then,
that's
there's a limit to that. Saturn is being quite clear.
and Neptune, that's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about there could be some confusion
Yeah.
here as to who am I and how do I fit into this world? Because again, there has
Ah,
been this push to erase the importance of the individual. And I think that we always think of Neptune as, illusion, deception, confusion. But that, I feel, comes as a result of needing to readjust a perspective
mm,
when we discover that what we thought was real and true is not real and true. And when we have that realization, which actually really is Neptune lifting the veil and clarifying, showing what is real, we have to make that adjustment, and that is the source of the confusion. And after what we've been through in the last 5 years particularly, where
mm.
individuality has been, I would say the notion of individuality has been under attack. um, I think now we're going, okay, well, so who am I? Who am I, and
Yeah.
how do I fit into this? And
Yes.
I
How
think
have
that
I been changed over these last 5 years?
exactly, yeah,
And forced isolation to a certain extent, which may have been very good for us in some ways. And Jupiter is about belief systems. So there is Neptune dissolving some of those old belief systems that we use to defend and protect ourselves in some way. Cancer can be very defensive, but can we translate that into more of a protective energy that can work really well with the Aries? It's like defending and protecting yourself. But the defensiveness can be a block.
it can. But you know what? It just reminded me of a talk that I watched at the Astrological Lodge of London about 2 or 3 years ago, led by Wanda Sella, in which she was looking at the charts of spies in the Second World War. And you would be interested to know that many of them were Cancerians. And so that protective, it's just that protective energy that you're talking about of Cancer. It can, how can I put this, express itself in surprising ways.
It can be very patriotic.
It certainly
It's
can.
like it's about home and family and where I belong. And as you said, where are my roots? What is my ancestry? Where do I come from? And the Neptune kind of brings that out to more of a broader spiritual sense as well. So yeah, there's a kind of sense of homecoming that we're yearning for here. And we have to come home to ourselves. And that might also be answering the Aries question. So
Yeah.
I want to share more about what Jupiter's doing as it goes through. Okay, come on. Oh, there's the next slide. Okay, so Jupiter went into Cancer June 9th, 10th. Um, and it stays in Cancer all the way until the end of next June. So while it's in Cancer, it's spanning the 30 degrees of that sign, and it gets up to and where does it get up to? Well, and it goes retrograde. Oh, I've got to refer to my thing here. It goes retrograde at some point. It goes retrograde. Um, hmm, it gets quite a bit through Cancer. And it goes retrograde in November, about mid-November, the 11th or 12th, at 25 Cancer. And then it goes all the way back to 15 Cancer and turns forward in the new year in let's see, in March. So I'm going to refer to the Hindu nakshatras, the Vedic nakshatras, which are the moon mansions. We know that Cancer is ruled by the moon. So I think we need to pay special attention to the lunations this year. And there's a really glorious one well, the next new moon on June 25th has Jupiter conjunct the new moon, sun and moon. So that's a special one to pay attention to really feel more into this Jupiter energy. And then when we get to August, Jupiter and Venus are conjunct at 14 to 15 Cancer. Now, if we look to the stars, this is in alignment with the fixed star Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. And this is the great goddess. This is the star of Isis, the great Egyptian goddess. This is the star of mm, the high priestess, let us say. So this is a very powerful energy. And there's so much more to say about Sirius. It gets very serious. And that's why we have this night blooming Sirius in this graphic. Because we have Sirius the star, we have Sirius being very serious, and we have this flower that's Sirius. So this is the yantra called the Shri yantra. Shri is the goddess. So this is the a geographic a geometric rendition or expression of the great goddess energy. And it's these interlacing triangles, the downward ones that are the material and the upward ones that are the spiritual. So this is the various multidimensional levels of heaven and earth coming together. And if you look at this graphic long enough, it's going to pull you in. You're going to see the vibration of these different levels coming. And you can, like the tide, in and out. And always the special point in the yantra is the point called the bindu point right in the middle. And it's very hard to see in this graphic. It's kind of like there, if you can see where I'm pointing. So that's everything, is around that. But this is a very powerful graphic or yantra that represents this Jupiter in Cancer energy, um, and the Sirius impulse. When we look at the nakshatras, they are the moon mansions, 27 or 8 of them, that are little asterisms that the moon visits each night as it goes around the earth. And in Vedic astrology, these nakshatras are really more important than the sun signs because they give you more definition of the energy rather than just 12. So, and I love these. So, and it's hard to learn because it's like a whole nother zodiac, but uh, so Jupiter, and it's 23 degrees different than the Western zodiac based on the Aries beginning on spring equinox, or, in the Southern Hemisphere, that's the fall equinox. So on one of the equinoxes. Oh, and we must just remind ourselves that Neptune and Saturn are circling the equinox point. So that's pretty meaningful. And Jupiter has just crossed the June solstice point. So we are dealing with some powerful energies and potent points in the zodiac when we're looking at, the equinoxes and the solstices being evoked here. So the first part of the sign Cancer from 0 to about 13, and 13, 14 is where we find Sirius, is the nakshatra called Ardra, which symbol is a teardrop. And this first section that goes from now into August is the Ardra section of this Jupiter in Cancer, which is not quite the Cancer energy we're used to kind of thinking about, because this is more, the tear. It's ruled by the god Rudra, the lord of the storm and the god of destruction. So this is the first part of Jupiter in Cancer is a bit stormy and it's a bit unsettling. So, and it's a very deep feeling nature of Cancer combined with passionate thinking because it's got some leftover energy from Gemini. So we're having, like we said, we can't really operate as well as possible in this energy when we're using our head. So the best outcome for this first couple of months is finding the connection between head and heart. So the teardrop is like the rain. This is the storm, and the tears of sorrow are part of this first section of Jupiter. And it has a lot to do with overcoming demons. So that is helpful to have some Aries on hand when we're doing that. So it's a struggle and it requires great effort. And the power, every nakshatra has a Shakti power, a goddess power. And the power of Ardra is the power of effort. So we need to, kind of use Mars as we go along here. Um, the shadow side of Ardra is the potential abuse of power and lusting after material attainments. And I'm now reading from a really great beginner's book on the nakshatras by Vedic astrologer Dennis Harness. So this first section, ruled by the storm god, might not be the calm waters we think about with the lotus blossoming, on the surface of the lake with Cancer. And then, however, when we get to August, we have this lovely conjunction of Neptune. I mean, where am I with Neptune? Neptune's happening, of Venus and Jupiter, the two brightest planets in the sky that are a lovely combination. I do believe they're going to be too close to the sun at that point. Let me just check. When they're conjunct in August. Oh, no, they'll be visible. They'll be visible in the morning sky. So lovely, lovely. So that's a beautiful combination. In Cancer, at 14 to 15 degrees. So that's Sirius. That's the great goddess being really amplified and brought forth, especially with the Venus energy. So, and the Sirius energy. So this is a beautiful, beautiful energy. And we get it again because Jupiter is going to go retrograde. We said in November, and it's going all the way back to 15. It's going to be very close to the Sirius star, and then it will move forward and it will meet up with Venus again. I know I put my notes down somewhere. Okay, my notes. On June 26th at 24 to 25 Cancer. So if you have any planets at those points, at the 13, 15, or you're going to get a really strong energy, and again at 24, 25, shortly before Jupiter goes out of Cancer. So Venus, Jupiter, it's, just a glorious combination. So, and that I think of as the high priestess of love. And I consider Venus the goddess of love and so much more, values, beauty, harmony. And Jupiter is, in Vedic astrology, he's guru. So he's the teacher, but can also be, and rules, well, never mind, I haven't gotten into that nakshatra yet. But so Jupiter loves being in Cancer. And it's the teacher, but it's also it's like the spiritual teacher.
I think too, there's something here about fertility.
Oh, yes.
It's, if we've got this energy of the goddess, then it's a time of great fertility, and if that and that could be imaginative fertility. It could be taking those ideas and turning them into something that is beautiful. But I do feel that this has to have a nurturing
Yes.
component to it, and perhaps even an altruistic component to it, because it has to resonate with love or the energy of love at
Yeah.
some point. So it's a question of where that resonance is, whether it is a higher resonance with a higher purpose, or whether it's a personal resonance. And I'm not placing a judgment as one being better than the other. I'm just saying different people will experience it at different levels. And I think that that is the beauty of this conjunction.
Well, going back to the Aries part, it's got to work for the individual or it's not going to work. And also and that might and that would be part of the Saturn, maybe, but then it's got the Neptune component too, which it is going to be, good for all of us. And that's what Ceres would want as well. So we've got Sirius and we've got Ceres, both kind of playing in here in the goddess realm. Now, when we get to that conjunction in August, uh, Jupiter moves into the next nakshatra, which is called Punarvasu, which is the star of renewal. And this is much more what we think about with Cancer. It's ruled by not the storm god Rudra. It's ruled by Aditi, who is the sky goddess who is boundless and vast, and she's the one who pours forth all that we need from her cornucopia of plenty. She's limitless like the sky. She is the mother of all the Buddhas. She embodies infinity and primordial vastness. And she's in some of the ancient Vedic mantras. So she is the goddess of protection, forgiveness, wealth, abundance, nurtures and protects her children. She is the great mother. She is also, attending to home and hearth and is this very loving, nurturing energy. She's the great mama bear that gives you the best hug ever. So this is where Jupiter enters in terms of those nakshatras. It does calm those stormy seas. It does bring us, back to the safety of home and where we belong and that good homecoming energy. And this nakshatra is ruled by Jupiter. So we get more of the best of Jupiter in this section of the sky from 13 to 26 of Cancer on either end of where Jupiter and Venus come together. So those two placements are in this beautiful, it's like the star of renewal. It's like taking say taking a pearl and shining it so its luster comes forward. It's bringing forth the best of what we've been giving and what we have to give to offer. It's like that crab shell or oyster shell more particularly, right? That takes a grain of sand and kind of makes it into that beautiful pearl that's not ready to be harvested until, it's time and it's been fully grown. And it's a sign of patience as well. Cancer is like, it's like let's just take our time and feel our way forward in a comfortable way where we're not stressed out, where we are taking care of ourselves and everybody around us in a way that brings us together in harmony.
And it's not linear. That's the other.
Oh, yes, you're so
It's
right.
not
That's a
linear.
good point.
Crabs move sideways,
Yeah,
and I think that the symbol of that is that this is not linear. It
yeah.
cannot be linear because linear is too direct, too constraining, and it's too targeted. This energy is a meandering energy. It's an
Mhm.
energy that needs to consider, observe, respond, consider, observe, or observe, consider, respond. And that's the feeling nature of it, which is why it cannot be linear.
Cancer is very contemplative. It feels things through. It sort of chews on things. It's not an instant responder, and it is so beautiful and gorgeous. And in this cyclical nature, it can harken back to memory. And this can be ancient memory. So this can be picking up things from the past that we need now, that we're remembering, that we can bring forward now and nurture now and bring back the star of renewal. So,
It's interesting that you're talking about it being, cyclical, because of course that makes me think of the moon, the ruler of Cancer. And that is also traditionally about the body and nature. And I think this is, for me, this energy is also about tuning back into nature, where
yes.
there's so much emphasis on technology and so much emphasis on actually turning our backs on nature. I think that this is a gentle, hello, remember me, um, kind of energy that brings us back into needing to connect with the less tangible aspects of living in this world. And it's about time too, I think.
Well, the Great Mother, this is part of the series, the great Earth Goddess energy of nurturing us. And the great goddess is nature. Nature is the goddess. So this is, honoring her. She grows us, you know, we give back. This is going back to some traditional ways of living on the earth and feeling, comfortable and homing in and not destroying. This is that gentleness, that holding, energy. So this is it's a really beautiful sign, for Cancer to be in this long. This is one of the best. Um, so so glad we're moving into this. This is really changing. Another change of the tone. All of the planets, if we just pull in the end of last year when Pluto went into Aquarius, all of the planets we generally use in astrology are changing sign this year. So this is one of those big changes, though, in this for many reasons. It's connected to Sirius, the star that is the closest one to us. This is the brightest star in the sky. It is said that our solar system might be a binary system with the Sirius system, and many of us remember being in Sirius. Is one of those star families that are remembering. Um, it's also, Jupiter's exaltation. It's also, oh, I lost some of my other points, kind of thinking about Sirius, but um, it's it's what we need. This is the goddess responding to our needs. And if we can feel that and articulate that, it gives her, more power. And what is her power? What is the power of Punarvasu? Because I said the power of Ardra was effort. The power of Punarvasu is, I think I can get this. I should know. Um, well, it's the power of renewal, for one thing. Oh, here's my list of that. The ability to gain wealth or substance.
Hmm.
This
Now
is
that's
the nurturing and bringing to blossoming and fruition.
that's interesting because I was thinking one of the benefits that we can expect from this energy is a sense of abundance. And in a time when so many are preaching scarcity for a variety of agendas um, that are being pushed onto us as to why we need to think in terms of scarcity. This is a wonderful soothing balm that says no, no, we don't need to be thinking in terms of scarcity. We need to be thinking in terms of abundance, because when we think in terms of abundance, then we are on a vibration of love, which means that we can include others and we can bring in notions of sharing, the very opposite of what is being preached, which is, oh, cut back on this, cut back on that, control this, control that. And that does not bring out the best, it brings out fear. And so to have something, an energy that says, actually, there is plenty for all,
Yes.
is a beautiful, soothing balm for our time.
And we have that Venus, she's the goddess of abundance. She's like Lakshmi with coins like falling all over her. The elephants are washing her with sacred waters, and she is part of this Aditi energy, and she is the goddess of abundance. And we have these two times when Venus and Jupiter, because Jupiter amplifies. So this is abundance. This is an abundance. So if we look at that mid-August, conjunction as an abundance point and to be willing to receive, because sometimes Cancer is, it's easier to give than receive, because sometimes when you're on the receiving end and you're more vulnerable, you don't get what you need and you can be hurt. But if you're receiving from the great goddess, you're going to get what you need in full measure. And then we have that other one in late June of next year that is also, we could call it an abundance point. So, if we put those in our calendars and know that there's this great gifting, this cornucopia that's opening up for us. And Jupiter is belief systems. So, this is believing that, and this is feeling that, and not denying that you say deserve it, and there's that Saturn and Aries can be a little, pushy and do just what you're saying. No, no, no. Restriction is the way, and it's like, there's a little bit of the Jupiter, the Cancer Aries dynamic going on there, the Jupiter Saturn dynamic going on there. And we need to overcome that in this first couple of months.
Well, I think there's a good chance of that because
Mm.
Jupiter is, as we've said, exalted. It is in a powerful position, whereas Saturn is in his fall and is not in the strongest position. These are not comfortable. I was going to say comfortable waters for Saturn, but it's a fire sign. So I suddenly thought, oh, maybe that's not the best term. But it's not a comfortable suit for him to be wearing, Aries. And I think that Jupiter is in a much better position to say, hey, come, follow me.
Yes, 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 and it's helping Saturn to be not so pushy, but to be like, okay, let's take my time here. I don't want to make a mistake. Not that Aries cares about that. When it wants something, it wants something. But again, I think what I was reading about Ardra and the God of Storms and the negative side of that first couple of months that we can overcome and bring it right into where we need it to be and want it to be. with the blossoming and the abundance and the really strong giving energy. And abundance doesn't always come in the form of money. It can come in the form of neighbors giving you food, or getting what you need in other ways, which might be part of the Aries too. How can I get that? How can I, sort of figure this one out in new ways that are fostering well-being and the new path forward in terms of how we are sharing and living together, and living on this earth, and sharing its abundance, and kind of building or rebuilding what it is, how it is we want to be living.
Do you know, this has to be the most optimistic conversation that I've had many a moon.
Well, I am a hopeful person, and I get accused of being too hopeful, and I say I positive mindedness is one of the powers, is
It,
what they call them, one of the your powers, if you use it, because let's expect the best, and not look for the worst, because whatever we're giving attention to is where we're heading. But we've got to believe it. We've really got to have it in our core. So,
well, in this instance, there is plenty of evidence to support the optimism. So I am absolutely delighted that we are having this conversation, because it is what everybody needs. It's that ray of sunshine, to start coming through the clouds, the very gloomy clouds that we have been living with for, it seems like, the longest time. And may we all come out blinking into the sun, and
yeah.
take off the sunglasses and just enjoy the light, I think.
One more slide to give a little giggle.
Yes.
This photograph is somewhere in California, and I love it because it's like you're seeing the heart of the crab. It's making these hearts. And so I just wanted to share this because I think it's a fun image for Cancer.
It certainly is. It says it all. Um, the claws and the heart. So I love it. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, well, I love that we, really dove into the beneficence, the abundance, the opportunities that are coming forward now with Jupiter in Cancer, and that we're going to be experiencing something very different, over the next couple of months and into the new year.
And that is fantastic. Very much what we needed to hear. So, Kelley, thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you for your invitation, Anna Isabel.
Now, if people want to find you, you have a fabulous Substack that I love very much. And of course, there's all of your other work. How do they find you?
Well, starlady.substack.com. That's my Substack, and that's kind of where I'm most active lately. My website, where you can find information and articles and all kinds of other aspects of my work, is heliastar.com, Helia, which is named after the feminine sun energy, heliastar.com. So that's my website, where you can see a lot of resources and see about my consultation offerings. And but the Substack, is where I put out a lot of stuff in relation to this, other things that I'm doing. Our video will be there, and other things that I'm doing. So that I love that Substack energy. It's quite a community. There's a lot going on there. I'm really enjoying it.
It is. It's a lovely. I certainly enjoy Substack myself, and that's a reminder to everyone that in the description box, not only will you find Kelley's Substack and website, but you will also find my own, as well as the link to Substack. So thank you, Kelley, and thank you all for watching. Next week, we're going to be looking a little bit more closely at Jupiter, but this time from a psychological perspective. Until then, goodbye.